Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? Mitchell Lane coming at you, the podcast show for the average Joe, the Wrestling Diaries. What do people struggle with in life and how they can overcome their adversities? Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, and a plethora of other platforms that host podcasts. Leave us a review. Tell people about us. Tell your grandma, anybody that's interested in this kind of stuff. Also, if you want to see the video content, see all these beautiful faces, these pretty people I have on here. Go to YouTube, like, share, and comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. I don't know where it's going to pop up, somewhere here. And tune in. And we release once a week, audio on Tuesdays, video on Wednesdays. Today I have a pretty cool guest I've been wanting to get on here for a little bit. Mr. Gerrel Jones.
And the crowd goes wild.
I'm going to get a tambourine one day and like for my guests.
Maybe not.
What's up, bud?
Hey, we good.
Thanks for coming on the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
So for people listening, I'll give a brief discography of you, and then I'll ask you a couple things. So you are a man who has dealt with a lot of adversities and came through a lot of broke
challenges.
Down, a lot of challenges in life. Yeah. And you're like Andy Dufresne, right? He crawled through 500 yards.
Not exactly. He was innocent.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, when Red was quoted, he just said Andy Dufresne crawled through 500 yards of shit and piss and all this stuff and came out clean on the other side.
Metaphorically. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I've had to crawl through quite a bit.
So you, at one point of your life, were basically a criminal. You were incarcerated for crimes, one being murder. And now you are an entrepreneur, you're a motivational, inspirational speaker, and you go around churches and schools and all that stuff and tell people your story. Let's dive into that a little bit. I know you've gotten this a lot, but, obviously I got to ask about this.
Yeah. Well, I didn't start out as a murderer. I didn't start out as a drug addict, didn't start out as, a bad guy, and never really wanted to be a bad guy in my heart of hearts. And, I've had to spend a lot of time examining how all that came together, because I did make decisions and I'm responsible for those decisions. But 1990, I guess you could say actually 87 was when I started delving into that life. And there's a foundation for that. That's pretty basic. You hear it all the time: dysfunctional family, dysfunctional system.
Sure.
And not really having all the character influences, the people that had what they needed to have in order to give it to me. My parents, mother lost her virginity at 7 years old. She was 15 when she had me. Lost it to an uncle, right? So my stepfather, his mother was 12 years old when she had him. My biological father there's a lot of rumors about his relationship with his mother. All his brothers and sisters were alcoholics and drug addicts, and he died of cirrhosis of the liver at 39. I didn't really know him because my mother didn't marry him. She married my stepfather because he was in the military, thinking that would be security. But with a 12-year-old mother, and raised by an alcoholic aunt, he didn't have a whole lot of stuff. He died of chemical dependency as well at 51 years old. And although I lived in the house with him, never really had a conversation. I was an only child, born legally blind, with these, being raised by these people who had all kinds of issues. And so by the time I left high school, even though I was gifted, clearly gifted, senior class president, gifted athlete, bag full of academic scholarship opportunities, just my insides, the way my head worked, I could not put one good decision behind another. And that led to medicating with drugs. And I ran off with a older woman, a woman that was 20 years older than me at that time. Ran off to Daytona Beach, right? And she was, a drug dealer. And I got into drug dealing, drug using, and ultimately committed an armed robbery, went to prison in 1987. I got an escape case, went back to prison. And in 1990,
what's an escape case, real quick?
Escape? Well, in this case, it wasn't like, Andy Dufresne, climbing, digging a hole.
Yeah.
But I had walked away from a work release center, just impetuous. And I had a lot of impulse control issues. If I got angry or, even if I was happy, just do something without really making any thinking about it, just do stuff, impulse. And so, got that and, went back to prison because it really didn't get away, but, got out in January 1990. And because of the way that I was acculturated, just looking at things and interpreting things and my thought was I was black, I was young, I was convicted, there's no way out of this. The thought was in my mind that, criminality is my only way. And so I got back into a life of crime, back into drug addiction, and ended up coming to Birmingham in 1992 to get my life together. It just didn't work out that way. I ended up stabbing an elderly man to death. And at that moment is when I had my conversion experience. To give context for that, it's just, I don't want people, this was a very, very bad thing, but I don't want people to think I was just running the street stabbing old people.
Right.
This was a man that was a part of my family, married into the family, and a part of that cycle I was telling you about, that story of my mother being molested and raped and so on and so forth. So he was a serial pedophile, and I never liked him.
So there's already brooding animosity between the two of you, I'm assuming.
Yeah, this was years in the making. And when I came home to stay with he was married to my great grandmother.
How old were you during this?
I was 24
at
that time, and he was 79.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, the jump off point was, he threatened me. And for me, that was an excuse to make a really bad decision.
Sure.
But immediately after I made it, I got away with the homicide. I actually got away with it. But my conscience, I had a stroke of conscience, and people would say, how does a criminal have I think there's a misunderstanding about the difference between what a person does and what a person is. Sometimes they coincide, but there are many times where, I think if people are honest with ourselves, we've all done something that did not jibe with who we believe we were. In that case, I came face to face with the fact that I was capable of these horrible things, and just put everything in perspective. But I had some intervention before that, and I think that was important. A white police officer that had arrested me for disorderly conduct in Georgia, and tried to help me before I even came to Birmingham. That's who I went and turned myself into. But I think that because of his concern for me, which was shocking,
because he didn't even know you. You're just a complete stranger.
Right. And it's like, it must be, a God.
Yeah.
Now,
divine intervention.
Yeah, because I didn't believe in the religious stuff.
Sure.
I had been wounded and tainted by what I saw and what I call churchianity.
Churchianity.
Yeah, there's a difference between Christianity and churchianity.
I like that.
Yeah.
Churchianity.
Churchianity is about membership of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity is about being a part of an organism. And if you can really think about it in those terms, then you realize the value of people and relationships that a lot of these institutions we call churches don't really have. But thank God for those that do.
Yeah, that's a great concept.
Yeah, but I knew that this guy, or I believed that this police officer had to be an expression because, it was just grace. There was no reason for him to be interested in me.
Right.
And so I turned myself into him, and I ended up being sentenced to life. And, thinking that I was going to die in prison, I did 20 and a half years.
Jeez, 20 and a half years. So how did you end up not doing life? How did you just get the 20-year thing? What's that?
So I was sentenced to life, and the attorney general would continually protest my parole. There was no intent for anybody to let me out of prison. They couldn't sentence me to life without. They would have if they could have.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened was that I accepted responsibility for what I'd done, and I just started learning, trying to focus on why I had become so jacked up. How did me, somebody who literally thought that I was exceptional in some ways, intellectually, maybe physically, I was looking at people that were handicapped, that were, living life, disabled people who were living life and doing well. How come I couldn't do it? So that took a willingness to turn the eye inward. And that's where I started examining my history, examining my influences, examining my belief system, how I put decisions together. I went to programs while I was in prison. I studied psychology, history, anthropology, everything I could, anything that had to do with people and the interaction of people.
And this is while you were incarcerated.
While I was incarcerated. And then I started, as I learned, I started building programs and building courses, and I started doing my own mentoring. I accepted that I was going to die in prison after my fourth parole denial, particularly. It's like these people are not going to let me out of prison. So
Right.
I'm just going to have to maximize my potential. And one of the things that, books that changed my life, I think, put me on another level was Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He was an Auschwitz survivor.
Okay.
And of course, I had lived in Germany, graduated high school in Germany, and had been to Dachau. And, to imagine the horrors, of course, in my family, there's a legacy of slavery. So when you look at people who overcome these things and you realize that, wait a minute, this is a part of my identity. I can overcome, but how do I do it? And so Viktor Frankl was talking about how he survived, and the way he did it was serving the people that were there, the people that were, whether it was helping them die comfortably or providing some resource, some service. I'm saying his philosophy was that basically your maximization as a human being is going to be in relation to your ability to provide service to other people. And you can do that in any situation. So here he was in Auschwitz, making full use of his personhood by giving it to the people around him. So that's what I started doing in prison. Of course, it was the Jesus principle too, the Jesus that I learned about it in my studies, not the one I learned about in church.
Yeah.
Because the Jesus that I learned about in churches is more like he's a transactional Jesus, right? It's not really a relational Jesus. He's
like a figurehead.
Yeah. Well, the idea behind churchianity is that God is here for you. And the idea that I learned in the scripture was that I'm here to be an extension of God, right? Which it sounds like a subtle difference. It's not semantics, though. There's a major difference in attitude and how you approach God. If you think God is your servant, your Jesus clause, your Santa Christ, right? Bless me, bless me, bless me, versus, right, hey, God, I'm here and I want you to express yourself through me to everybody that I come into contact with. Major difference. And it brought me into opposition with some people. But, as I learned that, I realized that discipleship was going to be a major part of how I helped other people, giving myself time and attention, my social currency, time and attention, social currency. So I did that. And the more people that got out of prison and had been impacted by me, the more their family members wanted to get invested in me. And so that's how I ended up getting out of prison, is that family members of people petition the government.
Yeah. So one thing I want to ask, because I know some people might be wondering, I'm wondering, like when you got sentenced and then when you go to prison, like what does it feel like? Is it like this gut-wrenching fear? You don't know what's going to happen, this dark dankness? Or what was going through your head like when you
there was nothing else that I can compare it to. I've tried to do that. The thing that I can imagine that it's close to, and I don't want to in any way minimize what the natives felt when they were being betrayed by people who had made treaties with them and poisoned with smallpox.
Yeah.
Or slaves who were being snatched away from their homeland. But that's what I would imagine the feeling comes close to. It's like you're completely and utterly powerless. Handcuffs and metal doors, and your name not meaning anything. You're given a number.
Yeah.
That number is the most important thing. You can't use a phone without that number. You can't buy food without that number. You can't get mail without that number. And so you're reduced to, living 200, sometimes 300 and 400 deep in a giant bathroom. And so you get all the smells, you get all the anger and frustration, and you got guys with mental health issues that are undiagnosed, and this is where you live. And there's nothing you can do about it. They tell you when to go to bed. They tell you when you can go outside. They tell you when you can take a shower. They tell you when you can use the phone. They tell you when you can buy food. So all of your humanity is taken away in that sense, if you believe that decision-making is a major part of your humanity.
Absolutely.
And so you have to find ways to find happiness and, in moments, a honey bun, a cup of coffee.
Sure.
No, you're laughing. I'm serious. right?
No, I mean,
Like,
I'm laughing, but I
being
get
able
it.
to
Yeah.
get a honey bun when you don't have any financial support, getting a letter in the mail, knowing that there's somebody else on the other end that's going to answer the phone if you call, being able to get a visit, once or twice a month, right? Those things become so important to you.
Yeah, it's like
New
stuff
tennis
that
shoes.
stuff that you would take for granted prior. Like you were
Right.
saying, like the honey bun. You never, like when you're eating it before, even as a kid, you don't think about how much you really enjoy
Right.
it until
Right.
like you're I
Yeah.
get it.
So the other thing that for me, because I think that God really put me in a situation where I had a choice to either learn from this situation or not, and I chose to learn because I could see the guys that chose not to learn. They were still doing dope. They were, acting out sexually. They were, getting into trouble. Living in there. Just trying to figure out a way to feel good versus figure out a way to be good. And so I made a decision to learn from this situation. And the more I learned, I felt like the more I could apply maximizing my humanity in that situation. Um, but the feeling of being sentenced to life was depressing, felt powerless. And, learning was a way that I could get my power back, if you will, your personal power, fulfilling myself and being able to use that information for the benefit of other people. You could still kind of have a sense of humanity.
Right. Did you ever get into any?
Never.
What was I going to ask?
I never got a disciplinary. I never got a citation. I did 20 and a half years without getting into any trouble, which people thought was remarkable because I was, a documented violent criminal. And
Right.
so we love to label people based on, what we can observe, right? And the tests we have, the MMPI, Minnesota Multifaceted Personality Inventory, right? You check these boxes the way you think, and then some guy with, probably his own issues and bents assesses you, and then you're labeled antisocial personality disorder, or you're labeled narcissistic, this, or you're malignant narcissist or whatever. But the truth is that if there is a God, then anybody is capable of, same God that created the universe clearly could change an individual piece of dust in space on this piece of dust ball. But I think my conversion, my willingness to change, was not really about, it wasn't about the labels. It was about just examining the honest willingness to examine, who I was, why I was, and why I did and do what I do. Motives, I think was the, really understanding selfishness, self-centeredness, and self-seeking, and the impact of that on other people's lives. And realizing also, and here's his key, is that I came to the conclusion that people were the most important thing in the world. Whereas before, it wasn't the case. The experience was the most important thing, or the transaction was the most important thing. But when I came to the conclusion that people was all, in that dungeon, people is what you got. They're unhealthy people, but it's all you've got in reality. So you learn to value, or I did. Right? I learned to value. So getting into trouble wasn't really an option, wasn't a motivation. And I think, understanding those things really helped me to progress as a human being in that environment.
But nobody ever tried to test your mettle?
Everybody gets tested.
Try to come
Everybody
at
gets
you and
tested.
stuff like that?
Yeah, everybody's tested. Whether you can be 6'9" and 340 pounds, it doesn't matter. Because you're a mark. You're an opportunity for a transaction for a lot of people that are living in survival mode.
Yeah.
So you got to be tested. And all the tests don't come with, hey, I'm gonna knock your head off. Some of the tests comes with temptation. It could be sexual temptation. It could be, just I want you to be a part of my group so you can feel good about being a protector and, somebody on that's a member of this team, this label, whether it's Aryan Brotherhood, Crip, Blood, whatever, neo-Nazi, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So everybody is tested or tempted in way, and it's not easy.
I can't imagine. I honestly
particularly
can't
for
imagine.
young people.
Yeah.
because who don't really have their identity established yet. On the other hand, when for people like me, I actually, would seek out guys that I knew were unhealthy in their sense of purpose and identity in that situation, and provide them an opportunity to walk the same path that I would.
Nice. Nice. It's so crazy. I've literally, I'm like one of these people that like to sit back and I like to put myself in situations. People think I'm crazy for it, right? But I literally, I think about like I've watched videos of torture and stuff in other countries, and I literally I meditate on it. Like I close my eyes and I think about
Yeah.
how high is my blood pressure? Like what's the rate of my heart beating right now? Like am I cold sweat? Like am I shaking? Am I nervous? I'm getting my foot sawed off. And people are like, man, you're crazy. Why do you think of that stuff? And I was like,
No,
well,
I think that's awesome.
I think it's beneficial because what it does is it's a big thing, a humble pie, just right in your face. Because it like you're using your mind to go to a different place to, I don't know.
Empathize.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
And more people need to do that, really, honestly. We're just too superficial in our understanding. And then in America, particularly, we have so much comfort,
Yeah.
And the bar keeps moving. We keep saying things like poor people, but our poor people are overweight and have cell phones.
Yeah, our poor people are they're very wealthy. Yeah.
And could, it's all relative, right?
Yeah. My friend Michael, he used to work for World Reach, is a missionary company, and he's traveled out to different countries in Africa. And me and him were having a conversation once. He was just talking about when he went over there. I think he was in maybe Zambia or Zimbabwe. I'm not completely certain. I don't want to misquote anything, but he was over there and he was in one of the villages and he was playing with the kids there. And he said when he came back home, he remembers being at a restaurant and he saw this little kid. And they were just freaking out about, their parents that gave him a cell phone. Maybe it was the kid's cell phone, and it wasn't loading quick enough, and the kid was just throwing a temper tantrum in this restaurant. And he said he was sitting there and he was drinking his coffee, and he was looking over that, and he was starting to think about how when he played back when he was in this African village, and how these kids that were running around with no shoes on and underwear, playing with sticks and rocks, and they're having the time of their life. Just with sticks and rocks, running through dirty streets, all skinny. You can see their ribs. And he's watching this kid freak out about, whatever app or game they were trying to play wasn't loading quick enough. And he was just thinking about how the vast difference of that, and how these other kids, I mean, they're running through these streets that have streams of piss and going through there. They don't have any sewage, sewer lines and stuff. And he was like, man, it's so crazy. We don't really realize just how great we've got it. And an attitude of gratitude is a very, very important thing for people.
Yeah.
Just telling me that. And I was like, yeah, that's deep, man.
I think even how great we've got it is kind of that's relative. Think about it. Is it really great? If I give you, let's see, if you're a cocaine addict and I give you a quarter ounce, it sounds like I'm a good guy to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
But ultimately it's going to kill you. And I think, I wrote a book called The Whole. And in it talks about how it's just like God walking this guy through his issues.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the phrases in there is, we consume and waste. We consume and waste. We consume and waste. Consume and waste. And I remember Jimmy Carter back in the 70s was very unpopular because he was telling America that, we just consume too much and we waste a lot. And all you got to do is look outside,
Sure.
and you'll see the consumption and the waste. I don't know if we should be grateful to be able to consume and waste as much as we do. I don't think it's a good thing. Now, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a communist. Neither am I a pure capitalist. If there's such a thing, but I don't think that we have the right perspective about stuff and people.
Yeah, I agree. And what that word you just said, that's what I was trying to think of. I think that's one of the biggest things that's missing that people are anemic of is perspective, right? Perspective, walk in somebody else's shoes. for a minute. And when you do, it changes your whole narrative. Your narrative should change. It's like an ego smasher, right? We think we have so many problems and all that stuff, but really it's just our ego speaking about things. And like when you have a better perspective, you know, I feel like it's a huge stepping stool to moving forward, you know, amicably.
Self-centeredness is our natural state.
Sure. Yeah.
Self-seeking and selfishness, which are all detrimental. I think when somebody like Donald Trump, Richard Nixon, several of the presidents we have gets elected, it's an opportunity for us to examine ourselves. You know, when psychologists will actually come out and say, hey, that guy's a malignant narcissist,
Yeah.
and we go, well, he's the greatest thing and we're the greatest nation. And the truth is America, while I'm grateful, for having the opportunity to be here, I would also be grateful, I'm sure, that if I was a French native or a German native, people tend to think that, I mean, we have this very, very narrow scope, but the point is that if America was ranked number one in something besides incarceration, I think we might have an
Is
argument
that a real
about
stat?
that's
really,
a real stat.
okay.
We're not ranked in number one in education,
Jeez
and
Louise.
quality of life. The only thing that we're ranked number one. See, because we used to be defense, but the thing about defense is that it's debatable now because you got China, you got Russia, you got other people who can stalemate you with their nuclear arms. So incarceration. We export more pornography than anybody in the world.
Jeez,
right?
Louise.
Yeah, but we never examine ourselves, and this is what I'm getting to. We never examine. All you gotta do is look at our entertainment. What do we entertain ourselves with? If it's not sexually provocative or violence, right? We're really not trying to check it out too tough. I don't know have a stat on it, but I think if you look at the best movies, right, there's a significant amount of violence and sexuality involved in it.
Absolutely.
So how do we assess the quality of our presence on the planet, if not by looking at what we entertain ourselves with?
That's a very good point. It really is. It's a really great point. I love it. So when you got out of prison, what did that feel like, and what was that like? And then who was there to help you? Did the police? Another thing I forgot to ask you earlier when you were talking about your incarceration was the police officer, the one that didn't give up on you and was there for you. Did he keep up with you through all the years and contact and whatnot?
Yeah. So crazy thing. So here you help me. He's the one that sent me to Birmingham in the first place. Got me a bus ticket, sent me to Birmingham to get myself together. 10 days later, I commit a homicide, and I come back to him and say, "Hey, look, I got this body."
Was he mad at you?
And
was he like,
no,
"What are you doing?"
No, man, I was distraught. I was, I was broken, and I was wearing responsibility. So he is one of the two most wonderful people I've ever met.
You're still friends with him now, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So I'm gonna tell you what happened. So he took me to the station. He called Birmingham. Like I said, nobody was looking for me. So I had to give them details in order for them to even, start looking in my direction. And he testified at my trial. He sent me money. He visited me, brought his family. For the next 20 years, he was my most primary supporter. My family wasn't able to do that kind of support. My mom was, she got her own issues, PTSD, that kind of stuff. She came to visit, I think, maybe 10 times in 20 years, which was awesome. I appreciate that. But Dana was there. And then when I got out of prison, the reason that I got out of prison was because of the work that I was telling you that I was doing. More guys I mentored, more people on the outside wanted to have an experience with me, wanted to know who this guy was. So one of them was a good old boy from Springville, Alabama. Rebel flag flying, Confederate flag, battle flag flying, card carrying Republican, conservative, just grew up in that bubble. But the biggest heart you ever want to see, just not as informed about the rest of the world as, he got all their insight from the world,
Yeah.
television, and usually it was Fox News,
Sure.
right? So his perspective was not going to be, but he knew that I had helped his brother, who was a member, had joined the Aryan Brotherhood at that time, and when he met me in prison, when the young brother met me in prison, he was watching me doing this mentoring and talking about this Jesus that, they didn't talk about in his church when he grew up. It was a whole different thing, it seemed. And he was just blown away. And so he said, man, you got to meet my brother. My brother said a black guy was going to bring me back to Christ, and 5 years ago. And so I met the brother, and the brother was moved and said that, yeah, I saw you in a vision, and appreciate you so much. And for the next couple of years, we developed a relationship. And then one day he says, hey, you know what? God wants me to help you get out of prison. And I've already been denied parole 5 times at this point. I'm like, bruh, they're not gonna let me out of prison.
Yeah.
I'm not even mad. They're not gonna let me out
You
of
just
prison.
accepted it at this point.
I'm here, bro. We're gonna change prison. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm gonna send people out. That was my goal, is to send people out with a healthy perspective. But he said, no, God told me he's gonna let you out of prison, right? So, I really appreciated that, but I didn't really have a whole lot of confidence in it. Sure enough, his family lawyer was a former state senator. And he gave him a call and said, hey, pray about helping this guy if you can. Next thing I know, I went up for parole, and on the 6th time, and they let me out. And that was October 29th, 2012. Now, that would be cool enough that he did that for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But shortly after that, he actually moved me into his home. And I stayed there for 3.5 years in Springville, Alabama.
While you were getting on your feet after you got out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And we had lots of conversations about history, about people social interacting. And he ended up taking the Confederate battle flag down because he felt like it got in the way of ministry. But that was based on our interaction. At the same time, he helped me understand. I had to watch him deal with the relationship with his wife, which I had never seen a healthy relationship before.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a tremendous opportunity for me. How to deal with money. I couldn't get a job, so I had to start a business. I had to start a lawn care service.
Okay.
Enrolled at UAB. They held up my registration. Didn't want me to go to school, bro. Check this out.
Yeah.
Held up my registration, made me take a battery of psychological tests as if I fit the profile of a school shooter. Not, but I passed the test, and I ended up with a partial academic scholarship as a double major, psychology and African American studies. Then I went to work for the Foundry. Got me a job. Through some relationships and the work that I was doing in the community with counseling with people in Springville. And then I was recruited to the Birmingham Violence Reduction Initiative. I was actually the first person ever trained in the city of Birmingham in violence reduction as a outreach. And so we did that for a short period of time until the present mayor cut that program out. But I founded a nonprofit organization in between there. In 2016. So things have just gotten better. I bought my first car 2.5 years out of prison. I bought my first house 4.5 years out of prison.
Wow.
So now we're, living the dream, I guess you say.
And now you're also a very busy guy. Tell everybody all of your professional and creative endeavors that you do now.
Right. Well, I mentioned Pneuma Gallery, Pneuma. It's like you recognize it's a root word for pneumonia, but pneuma is the Greek word for spirit, and I invented that name for corporation, nonprofit when I was in prison because I felt like the Hebrew cultural perspective of the word spirit is much more expansive, and it has to do with words and speaking life. People say that term all the time, but you have to breathe to speak. And gallery is about the many different ways that the spirit, the pneuma, expresses itself. It's not just in church, right? Everything is spiritual. And so I wanted to show people in underserved communities, particularly, a different way that the spirit expresses itself. And so I founded Pneuma Gallery in 2016 with our mission statement, reducing violence, recidivism, and family dysfunction while building community. And so I've been the executive director of that for the last 5 years, since 2016. I went to work also, and this job will be ending this month, with Build Urban Prosperity, Build Up, Ansley, which is a private school that caters to underserved, community traumatized, really students and families. Teaches them how to renovate homes. It's a workforce development school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, but also, how to renovate homes. And we receive homes that are donated. We buy property, put those homes on, have the kids put them together. At the end of a 6-year term, they graduate with a 2-year degree. They can continue to go to school if they want, or they can go to work with one of our partners, construction partners like Bradfield and Gorey. But they'll be making a living wage, and we give them no interest loans on 2 of the homes that they've been working on. So the idea is to eliminate the wealth gap by giving them opportunity for property, no student loans, plus $25 an hour, which is a living wage, which really puts you ahead of the game when you're coming out of an underserved.
That's fantastic, man.
It is fantastic. Look it up. That's buildup.work. Numa Gallery is numagalleryinc.com. I also am a board member of Neighborhood Housing Services. Neighborhood Housing Services provides education in, home ownership, creates opportunities for first-time home buyers to get down payment assistance. The idea is whatever we can do to put people in homes, particularly in underserved communities. And there are other programs, but look that up as well. Neighborhood Housing Services, Birmingham.org. Then I'm a public speaker. I started that business. I started that business in October with another just amazing intervention. A guy named Pete Cadence got a hold of my story and decided that he wanted to invest in, so he loaned me some money to start this business, and we take this show on the road. And just kind of inspired people with the hope. So GerrelJones.com. You can reach me there and book me there for speaking engagements if you desire. I'd be glad to come. And I also am a lot manager and community organizer, outreach for a company called Blight Free Birmingham. That's BLIGHT, Free Birmingham. And what we are is a company that buys properties, and we can either move homes onto them or renovate homes that already exist, or turn those properties into green spaces. But whatever is good for the community, we're kind of like a stopgap for gentrification, because, whereas in these underserved communities now there's a land grab in a lot of them. What we do, we grabbed up a lot of the land beforehand so that we could keep property values where people could afford them, so if you decide that you want to buy a piece of land and then put you a $300,000 home on it, it's okay. We're going to put a home that looks like that, but it's going to be 90 or 100, right? So that people can really afford it. So, and we want to convert renters into homeowners, because you have a high renter volume, renter population in a lot of these underserved communities. So we're real concerted about what we do. Some wonderful people, including Elizabeth Farrow, who founded the company, Shagan Osalana, who's an amazing human being, and his wife Mary, and some silent partners. I guess I won't call their name, but they just really wanted to do something good. It wasn't about making money for them; they already had enough, right? But they really wanted to do something that would benefit these underserved communities in the city of Birmingham. So I am a kind of wraparound service.
Yeah. I feel so honored that you would take the time, because you're such a busy guy, man. Take the time to come over to be on our little independent podcast here in the middle of Bessemer.
Well,
I
man,
appreciate it.
I hope it blow up and you blow up.
I mean, that's what I'm working towards. So now I want to get to the point of the show where we get a little bit deeper. Which, I mean, I say this, but I mean, we've went down some pretty deep rabbit trails here. But you now, you're out and you're this inspirational, motivational person, and you're writing books and you're changing lives and helping the community and strong man of faith. But what are the things now that you personally still, or maybe newly, wrestle with? What are the monsters in your closet and demons on your bed, man?
Let me preface this by saying this, man. I believe that this is a principle that the more capable a person is, the more significant their personal issues are going to be. So, however great you think I am, that's how horrible I have the capacity to be. Right. So
it's fair enough.
I mean, you don't become a murderer and not have some significant issues, conscience notwithstanding. Right. Yeah. So, but I mean, learning how to fight the good fight not be selfish. Everything that's wrong with me is my basic struggle today is examining my motives. It's the same one that was yesterday. What are my motives for what I do? Am I here? Even when I do good stuff, I've got to be really, really vigilant about why I'm doing this good stuff. Um, Valuing people who don't value you is a trigger for medicating. I'm a cocaine addict. I'm a sex addict. I'm a anything that feels good. There's a proclivity involved in that. So I think that the biggest say external thing that bothers me the most that can get me in trouble is trying to navigate success. Success is deceptive, man. The more you get, the more you want. If
Hey,
you're not
sweet.
careful,
Yeah.
if you're not careful, you get caught up. And I drive a Prius; it's paid for.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Up high.
Also, and I bought it when I was poor,
Mhm.
and I bought it because it gets 45 to 50 miles a gallon, depending on where you're at. But now I own it outright, and there's an opportunity to go get some more debt so I can look good to people.
Right.
And being out here and on TV and radio, and people wanting to do interviews, right? There's a temptation to start getting my eyebrows done.
Turn yourself into a caricature.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, so that you could get more attention.
Yeah.
And get more likes, and you buy stuff and you show people that you got it. I can drive an Audi, but I could also feed some people,
Mm.
and
Very true.
trying to stay grounded in that. At the same time, I have a wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wives be wanting stuff. You know what I'm saying? I
No
don't know,
doubt.
wives be wanting stuff. So like I had to talk her out of, let's buy a big house, although we got to buy another house.
Yeah.
Let's spend money on trips, just to, just experience some things, right? But yeah, I think that the biggest struggle today is navigating how to handle success with in relationship with other people who are very transactional. Everybody's looking for the value proposition. What can I get? What can I get? Having to navigate that, interact with that, and not be tempted with riches.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I've literally given myself anxiety sitting back thinking about the same thing that you just articulated here about my own self, and just having these ego boosters and feeling more important, and having people you never met want to come up and shake your hand and blah blah blah. I told Matt, I was like, man, the minute I reach that rainbow and I'm touching the pot of gold there, I was like, please make sure you keep me in check, man.
Yeah.
Make sure you keep me down to earth. I don't want to turn into like some prima donna ass.
I heard a story about an emperor in Rome who hired someone to walk behind him and say, "You're just a man. You're just a man." Because the emperors, they would have these parades when they're, and people say, "You're just a man.
Yeah.
You're just a man." And if you can imagine back then, they didn't have deodorant nor toilet paper. So
Yeah.
not only you just a man,
Ugh.
but you stank, right?
Sure, yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I just need somebody to remind me when I can't remind myself. And that's the other benefit of having relationships, is that real relationships, people are going to tell you got a booger in your nose.
Right. They
Right.
put you in check, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I feel like I told somebody once, I was like, when I see somebody out in public and they're being really rude and they got a bad attitude and they're like being mean to their server or talking down to somebody, like I look at that person and I like, sometimes I used to get angry, but now I kind of, there's a pity there. And somebody's like, well, why do you pity them? They're being a jerk off. And I was like, well, I pity them because I feel like my opinion is that there's not people in their life that love them enough to call them out on their BS. And that's why they go out and they act that way, because they don't have somebody that loves them enough. And I was like, I'll love them enough and I'll let them know. So I've gotten into a couple of interesting conversations out in public with people that want to beat me up.
Yeah, entitlement entitlement is a major problem
Yeah.
with the culture of transaction. You know, trying to get more. Why? So that I can have more personal power, so that I can have less accountability.
Yeah.
You know, that's really how that thing goes. I don't want anybody telling me what to do, right?
Yeah.
You know, and if I've got the power, then hey, nobody can tell me.
Yeah. With great power comes great responsibility.
That's true.
That's a good quote. It's a really good quote. So I've been asking this question a lot, and this question I feel like is almost like I made it up before I even met you, but I feel like this one's just perfectly just created for you. But this new question to ask people is if Matt over here, he's a little tech genius, right? He's working on this machine right now. Do. Telephone time machine, man. You can pick it up and you can dial into the past at any point.
Wow.
We let you use Matt's telephone time machine, and you pick it up, and you can pick any date, any time, and you can call yourself in the past. And I always ask people at a point where you feel like you would want to talk to your past self because they need to have a conversation with you from the future. What point do you call yourself, and what do you say to him?
18 years old, I call myself. I just graduated high school. It's June 1985. I tell myself, go to trade school. What's going to happen in the future is that there's going to be a dearth of tradesmen. Everybody's trying to go to college, and what they're going to come out of college with is a bunch of debt. And they're going to be in a hole. Well, you're already poor, so you don't really need to be in that hole. Go to trade school, get the student loan to go there. It's not going to be very much. Maybe even the grant would probably cover it all. Become an electrician or a plumber, and just start stacking your money. And then you can start doing projects for other people. By the time you're 50, you'll be a millionaire, and you'll be able to live on the interest and create opportunities for other people.
Roll Tide. Roll Tide, roll. This is a really great experience, man. I'm so glad you came on here. I've learned a lot too, like getting to meet you. I love doing this show because this show does two things for me. First, this is like a outlet, right? A platform for reconnection with people. Like the whole classic, you see somebody in the grocery store and see in a while, and you're like, "Hey, what's up, Bobby? We should get a drink together sometime." Blah blah blah, and then you never do. You know,
Right.
This is a way that people come on here, and I do catch up with them, and they have a platform to feel important and feel great and feel wonderful to talk about themselves and their problems and the things that turn them on in life and things like that. And it's also a great platform for me to meet and experience new adventures with people I've never had the pleasure to engage with. And so with you, that's what I got from this, man.
Well, I appreciate that.
And you seem like really you're so cool and laid back. At first, I was like, this guy's pretty intense. He's an intense guy.
I can be intense now.
Well, that's good. In comparison to people that I've encountered doing this before, but that's good. I like that. I like you're straightforward, and it's good. Maybe more people shouldn't play around and beat around with foreplay as much. Get to the point of things and get busy and do some things. One thing I have to say too is that old saying that's like, what is it? Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Yes.
So if that was applied to you, he wouldn't even be able to get in the parking lot.
Well, yeah.
Because you were staying busy, my man. That's what I'm trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Stay busy, keep me out of trouble.
That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
We got some more time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's what I came across one time, and I wrote a presentation, a kind of brief presentation. It was almost a poem, but it talks about this is, what if we measured everybody using energy producing apparatus as a measurement, right? Say the most intellectual, the most skillful, or so they're the top, and they would be nuclear power plants, right? Produce a lot of energy, can power a lot of stuff. And at the bottom would be someone maybe with a disability, with Down syndrome, or low on the autism spectrum, and they would be a matchstick, right? And so in between there is the average. And let's say that the average is maybe a hydroelectric dam. So the average person is a hydroelectric dam. Well, my parents were wood burning stoves, but somehow they gave birth to a nuclear reactor. And so what happened was not nuclear power plant, but just a reactor.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know that I was a reactor because they're doing their best to raise a good wood burning stove. Now every time they put wood in this thing, it melts down, and they don't know why, right? And I'm doing my best to be a good wood burning stove.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I was able to be taken out of that environment and start to examine, oh, wait a minute, I'm not my parent. My parents had a particular experience. They had interpreted those experiences in different ways. They have, while I share their DNA, the DNA lined up a different way in me. And so I'm capable and responsible for doing more. But here's the thing about a nuclear reactor versus a hydroelectric dam. A hydroelectric dam has to have a certain amount of controls, definitely more controls than a matchstick or a wood burning stove. It has to have more dials, more regulations, so on and so forth. But a nuclear reactor has to have that much more controls, and it has to be watched 24 hours a day. And it's got to have, you got to have distilled water, you got to have plutonium, you got to have all these kinds of things that a hydroelectric dam doesn't. And if you don't have those things in place, then that is going to be no matter how wonderful it was while you had the controls, if you take the controls away, then it's going to mess some things up. Well, that's the same thing with people. And I use that with, the greatest, skillful, most wonderful people have the greatest issues, and they have to have the most relationships because they have to have the most accountability. That accountability is those controls, because the truth is that as good as stuff is run through, that person's mind, there's also some other stuff that he can't tell nobody. Mm-hmm. Right. Sure. So there's got to be somebody, to do that. So now, I'm trying to live the nuclear reactor life with a lot of accountability, doing a lot of work, because if I don't, then I'm subject to meltdown. I'm not allowed to be a wood burning stove.
That's a hell of an analogy, man. Did you make that up yourself?
What? Was that a microaggression? No, it wasn't. Yeah, I did, bro. Yeah,
I'm just messing with you. Yeah. Before we go, you were talking before about how you like to write poetry. Moi, likes to write poetry. I'm not as good as you, though, because I don't remember mine. I have to read it off my phone or a piece of paper. Matt's laughing at me over here. But before we go, you want to recite one of yours that you have by memory? But before you do that, I want you to plug in one more time your social media and your website and all those things, and way people can get in touch with you or get into your mission.
Pneuma Gallery, PNEUMA, Gallery Inc. .com, or you can put in pneumagallery.com and it'll probably come up. But we are responsible for putting the neighbor back in neighborhood. In fact, we'll be having an event on August 15th in Inslee. I call it edutainment. We'll have people out there. We'll have comedians. We'll have live entertainment. We'll also have some people performing on. Anyway, it's all free. Now, we'll have vendors out there that are not free, but come out. And I'll be talking about how to change social norms in order to empower communities to be the source of their own revitalization. So you can look us up on pneumagalleryinc.com. Also, you can find me on GerrelJones.com. You can book me for speaking engagements. And I speak everywhere. I've spoken. My client list includes Fortune 500, companies as well as Forbes listers, as well as schools and churches. I spoke at your church. Right. So we're trying to get, our information, our inspiration out as much as possible. Also look forward to the documentary. It's called I Am a Promise of My Environment, Not a Product. Right. And so that is a documentary that'll be out this fall. We just finished shooting that. You can look up my books, The Whole. Look up Gerrel Jones, Gerrel Jones, and The Whole, HOLE, and Foolish Things, 2 novels that I wrote quite a while ago. And also, what else? I think that was it, right? You can look up blightfree.com as well and get some information on that. Email me if you want to. Also, if you want to contact me, you can email me at gerreljones.com. There you go.
Sweet.
You asked me something, and I was like, what was it? What was the other question you asked?
I was going to see if you'd recite one of your poetries
Oh, man.
before I sign this baby off.
Yeah, this slam stuff. Okay, here we go. Y'all ready?
I'm ready, man. Let's hear it.
No, if you ain't got some thick skin, don't trip. All right. This is a poem that I wrote when I had my fourth parole denial, and I was really depressed. And I remember that in the Bible, there was a story where David and his men, they got basically, flanked, and their wives and children were taken. And so they blamed David because he was a leader. And the Bible said that he had to go and encourage himself in the Lord. So when I got that fourth parole denial, I was like, man, okay. Stand up, Negro, like you remember that you have a spine. Playing around and laying around, you ain't got time. You're going to have to deal with this because you created this situation. I don't want to hear about your feelings of alienation. Too many before you have succeeded and they didn't do wrong to get what they needed. So stand up. You're going to have to deal with this. And with your head held high, not in false pride, but in dignity, which comes with the acceptance of the fact that you have committed errors, but you're willing to correct that and stand up and be a man about it. Face the shame, don't place blame, do what you can about it. And don't be fooled by what Thomas Jefferson said about Negroes being basically dead in the head because he ain't no prophet unless you make him one. My opinion is he was just another whip cracker, psychopathic soul jacker with too much power in his pen masking his profound proclivities towards sin. Founding father. Kind of makes you wonder what type country you're living in. But stand up, because you were not constructed for niggerhood, and I think it's time that we brothers understood the things that we do have ramifications, far-reaching implications. And right now, we're writing history. You better be conscious of your legacy and leave something for your progeny and stand up. And if you want to know why the sisters are tripping, it's because they're seeing too many brothers slipping in and out of the jailhouse, and they're tired of playing cat and mouse with crackheads, peddlers, pimps, players, and gay meddlers. They need someone who's strong, a man with vertebrae, someone they can lean on. So stand up and be fathers to your children, husbands to your wives. Do something significant and contribute to the advancement of their lives. And when you stand up, people will call you sir. And when the roll is called for the dependable, no one will have to wonder where you were. You'll be a man then. And because you had the world on your back, you'll be stronger for it. And we need that. Black. So stand up.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gerrel, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in on another episode. This is a powerful one. I usually give like a final thought like Jerry Springer, but I'm not going to do that today. I feel like this show spoke for itself. One thing I will say is no matter like what you're dealing with or how low you get, Gerrel's a perfect example of how you can come back. You absolutely can come back.
Absolutely.
From whatever it is. That's it. And that's all I'm going to say. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Leave us a review. Check us out on YouTube. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell for more content. What do you wrestle with and how can you beat it? One love.